You're here with me, Tamina Kausji, in our studios at Banama, and we have with us today Mr. Richard Jacob, immediate past president of the Rotary Club of Damansara, and we will be talking to him about this wonderful humanitarian and service-oriented club and what exactly it is that they do. Right, welcome to the studios, Mr. Richard.
Good morning. Well, nice to be here too.
All right, it's wonderful to have you in with us. Thank you for making the time.
Great.
All right, so before we get started, would you mind telling us a little bit about your own professional background?
Right. I'm a management trainer and consultant.
Right.
I've been in this business for 20 years.
I see. Okay.
Of which 18 years is on my own, running my own boutique company called RCJ Consulting.
Okay.
In fact, it is 18 years tomorrow.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. And I personally focus on areas of fundamentals of finance, marketing, strategy, and leadership.
Right.
And now, just in the last couple of years, I focus now on coaching.
I see. All right. So that sounds like an extremely full professional schedule, but you are also a Rotarian.
Absolutely. Very much a Rotarian.
All right. Now, tell us, before we get deeper into the mechanics of the Rotary Club, what actually is the Rotary Club?
Okay. The Rotary Club is actually a smaller version of what Rotary is.
I see.
Rotary is actually an international organization which is service-focused, as we will speak a little bit more about it.
Yes.
Which brings business and professional leaders in order to provide humanitarian service. So there's a lot of connection with humanity, and also encourages high ethical standards in all vocations and help build goodwill and peace in the world.
Right.
It started in 1905 by an American called Paul Harris.
Okay.
And it first came to Malaysia in 1929.
I see. All right. Very early on.
In a little town where I was born called Sramban.
All right.
Therein was the first Rotary Club of Malaysia.
All right. And you yourself have been a member of the Rotary Club of Damansara.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, let's talk a little bit about what originally inspired you to, or how did you come to join the Rotary Club?
Okay, it's a very interesting story. Actually, one of my friends, his name is Victor Miranda. He actually met me in a coffee house in Equatorial Club. And he said, "What are you doing, my friend?" You know, he was an ex-banker. And he said, "Why don't you come over to Rotary?"
Right.
And as that point in life, I sort of just wanted to do something connected with humanity. So I went to join the club. I went for a couple of meetings, what they call as observations. And after you observe a couple of meetings, they ask you whether you want to become a Rotarian.
That's a very interesting process. You observe first.
First, get to know the people in the club, you know, and whether you feel comfortable. And after that, I decided to become a Rotarian.
I see.
And as one of the core values of Rotary is fellowship. I enjoyed the fellowship of the club.
Right.
You know, so typically, towards the end of the meeting or after the meeting, there's a good fellowship. And our club, the Rotary Club of Damansara, had actually a good reputation for fellowship, which we still continue very much. So if you ask me the question, what inspired me to be a Rotarian, or what I call as a true Rotarian, was my first trip to Cambodia as Director of International Services.
I see.
Where one of the past presidents, Rajendran, asked me to join him to work on this project.
Okay.
The Rotary Club of Damansara always worked with an NGO organization in Cambodia.
Okay.
And it's actually an organization run by a handicapped person whose leg was blown off in one of these landmines. And he caters for this community. So what happened was, we were in Siem Reap. We drove 90 kilometers on the main road and 10 kilometers into the deep jungle.
Completely off-road.
Completely off-road. And when you arrive there, you begin to see a community. People smiling, people living. and the Rotary Club of Damansara contributed wells to this community.
I see.
8 wells.
All right.
And what we did is I for one actually saw human beings living in this community. You know what I'm saying? And can you imagine a guy without a leg going 20 feet deep, 20 feet down to get water using our mechanical water well?
Right.
And your mind just gets blown off that such things exist.
A completely different perspective from our usual daily lives. Yes.
Completely. Until then, I used to read about this thing in the Rotary International magazine called the Rotarian. So besides fellowship, it was this Rotarian magazine where Rotarians all over the world actually connect with humanity in so many different ways.
Because you're an international community, not just in Malaysia or in US, everywhere.
That was unbelievable. So that was when I really became what I would call a true Rotarian.
Right. And this was, how many years ago was this incident?
2009 to be precise.
All right.
It was a real turning point.
Real eye-opener.
Yeah. And after that, I always tell people who come to Rotary, I speak about it at events, that in Rotary you have to get involved in projects.
That's right.
And only when you get involved in projects do you actually feel a Rotarian.
Okay, so that's the key.
Yeah, that's the key.
Get involved.
Yeah, and as you would know, it's simply the fact that until you feel things, there's very little action.
True.
Correct.
True.
So that's something, you get an idea, but Professor John Cotter used to say, until you feel the idea, you never get an action.
Right.
So it triggers a thought, but the thought must become a feeling
before it becomes an action.
A good action.
There you go. Well said indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what are the objectives of the Rotary Fellowship itself? Now that you've talked about how it personally affected you, but what are some of the guiding principles of Rotary?
Yeah, I think one of the most common global guiding principle is what we call as the 4-way test.
Okay. Yes, I've read about that.
Yeah,
4-way
interesting.
test.
I'm glad you read about it. The 4-way test, the first thing is whatever we do every day, it speaks of, ask yourself, is it the truth?
Is it the truth? Okay.
Okay. Powerful question. Is it the truth? Okay. And that relates to credibility, whether you're a con man, whatever. So whether it's a project, whether it's a donation, whatever, question, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned?
Okay.
So you don't want a situation where you're hurting somebody and benefiting.
That's
correct.
Right.
So all over the world there are personalities, who use organizations for their own purpose, etc. And you just go into this question: is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
Right.
Okay. Third thing: will it build goodwill and better friendship?
Okay.
So a lot of the humanitarian projects is centered around this core thing called, it will bring goodwill and better friendship. And the last one, will it be beneficial to the people concerned or to all concerned?
There you go. Most importantly.
What
are you bringing to them?
Absolutely. And those, the 4-way test actually, takes Rotarians, there are members who are 30 years, 40 years, and sometimes they leave, but they live these principles. And it's actually in their DNA.
There you go.
Pretty much.
In your DNA.
Yeah.
Right. So basically, if you have something in you that tells you want to be of service, Rotary would be a wonderful place for it to bloom.
Absolutely.
All right.
Because a little bit more, because in doing these things, Rotary projects, it allows an individual to grow, to grow as a leader, to grow as a communicator, right? To build confidence. So all the leadership principles,
they actually come into play.
So you couldn't get a better place to develop leadership.
And is membership open to everyone?
Absolutely. It's actually anybody can become a Rotarian.
Right.
And if you ask me if I was appealing out to the audience,
There you
I
go.
would say, please come and try. Just come as a member with no obligation. Get to the nearest Rotary Club in town.
Yes, the nearest one to your location. There are plenty of Rotary clubs.
There are 70 over clubs in our district, 3300.
Okay.
Right, which is basically from the north right up to Malacca.
Wonderful.
And then you get 3301, which looks after the south, and Singapore, and East Malaysia. So there are lots of Rotary clubs around.
Okay.
And if you, what I would like to really, particularly if you are a person, even as an adult, I'll come to leadership at the lower levels later.
All right.
If you're an adult and if you find some form of vacuum in your life, and yet you want to give, you want to contribute,
you still have so much more in you.
So much more in you. And as you age, don't let that void take over your life. Join a Rotary Club.
Right.
Great place to have. Do humanity. What else can you ask for,
True.
You
True
can't
enough.
ask for anything more. As an adult, you're retired or semi-retired, you get a first-class opportunity to contribute.
With like-minded people as well.
With like-minded people, great professionals.
Right.
All right, number one. Number two, it's nice to have friendship and fellowship.
At the same time.
At the same time.
They're two different things, actually.
Two different things,
Yes.
And imagine if you just take a recent example of how Rotarians got together.
Yes, you were telling me, please.
Yeah, during the recent floods on the East Coast.
That's right.
So many Rotary clubs throughout the nation were involved. They not only contributed money, but they actually moved
their own supplies.
Actual supplies using four-wheelers and trucks and all to the East Coast. And it was just unbelievable to believe that Rotarians have got so much of influence that they get their friends to contribute.
That's a true spirit of being not only an NGO but fellowship itself, doing it all.
In fact, just to let you know, yesterday,
yes,
I went to a Rotary function called Gift of Sight.
Okay.
Gift of Sight, last year I participated in it. It is in Cambodia.
Okay, and what's it about?
When we went to Cambodia, we were a group of like 20 people with Dr. Chung, who led it.
Right.
And a couple of good Rotarians. And we went to Kampong Cham, which is like 4 to 5 hours drive from Cambodia, from Phnom Penh.
Right, the capital.
Oh, capital. You go into this hospital. And I was there for 3 days. 4 nights and 3 days. Yeah, 4 nights. And we, together as Rotary clubs, raised money.
Right.
Got the good services of Dr. Chung and his team. And Rotary Club of Damansara, because I was president last year, I went with it. And we contributed some amount of money. And they did 50 over cataract operations.
Right, in the space of those 4 days.
4 days.
Nice.
You can't believe the fact.
The impact that, one little butterfly
and let me tell you, there was a guy, a young kid, probably in his teens or late teens, who was blind on both eyes.
And one can just imagine what it would have meant to him to actually get his sight back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And 2 days later,
he was seen.
To believe that you are part of a group that made that happen.
Wonderful indeed.
In whatever was unbelievable. And this was done in some unheard of hospital, where things were not the case. But it happened.
Yes. So what we'll be doing is we'll be taking a quick break. And when we're back, we'll be talking more to Mr. Richard Jacob about his wonderful experience with the Rotary Club of Damansara and much, much more. Stay with us.
Dan terkini industri kreatif tanah air. perkembangan muzik tempatan, lensa anak seni, aksi layar perak, tanpa gosip dan sensasi, semuanya disisipkan selama setengah jam dalam Telesini bukan sekadar hiburan. Setiap Sabtu jam 12.30 tengah hari hanya di Bernama TV.
Kavita, Meling, dah set ke belum?
Sikit je lagi, Puan.
Apa menu kita hari ni?
Semua menu sihat. Ikan bakar, sup ayam, sayur-sayuran. Banyaklah.
Puan, banyaknya guna minyak. Bahayakan kesihatan lah.
Betul lah macam ni. Saya dah kurangkan separuh dari biasa ni.
Cuba rasa ni. Sedap tak?
Biar kurang masin, jangan lebih.
Betul tu. Kita kena kurangkan minyak, gula,
Garam dan santan dalam masakan. Barulah ramai pelanggan datang ke kedai kita.
Semuanya
sihat belaka.
Menyelami realiti, menjejaki masa, meninjau peristiwa, paparan kronikal kembara kehidupan, pelbagai keunikan juga pengalaman menarik. Segalanya disorotkan selama setengah jam dalam channel bernama setiap Ahad jam 9.30 malam hanya di Bernama TV.
Welcome back to The Nation. You're here with me, Tamina Kausji, and in our studios today we have with us Mr. Richard Jacob, immediate past president of the Rotary Club of Damansara. And so as you were telling us, sir, now Rotary has a lot of influence as well as involvement with medical initiatives. Now tell us a little bit about Polio Plus and Rotary's involvement.
All right. Firstly, Tamina, maybe I want to correct that medical initiative.
All right, okay.
It really has to do with peace, conflict prevention and resolution, and disease prevention. Yeah, rather than medical. Because when you use the word medical, it could mean that we are contributing to research and development, etc.
All right, so it's more towards treatment.
Disease prevention.
Disease prevention.
Prevention and treatment.
Okay, all right.
I think one of the best examples of Rotary's global initiative is a project called Polio Plus.
Okay.
Which started in the 1980s.
I see.
And a testimony of what Rotary has achieved is simply the fact that the Bill Gates Foundation worked with Rotary by giving Rotary $200 million a couple of years ago to help fight Rotary. To help fight Polio Plus. Apologies.
Right. No, not to worry.
To help fight. And Rotary has done an amazing work. In fact,
it's towards the eradication of polio.
And the non-recurrence of polio.
Right.
In fact, if you went around large parts of the globe, you will see very good media all posted all over to say we are that close to eradicating polio. Let me tell you, a couple of months ago I was in Tanzania.
Okay, Tanzania.
I visited my son there, and never in my life have I seen so many polio victims.
All right. In this day and age.
In this day and age.
Yes.
And they were in traffic lights begging.
Yes, and naturally, because it disables.
They were disabled, they're begging. But to see so many in one little town is unbelievable.
The concentration.
Yeah. And when you look at that and what Rotary has done in the area of Polio Plus, is amazing. We have now eradicated, except in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria. There are some indications that it's coming back in the Middle East. Places like Syria and Libya, it's coming back.
A new wave of
A
sorts.
new wave.
Right.
Because for some reason, if you look at what's happening in the world,
the conflicts as well
as
the...
a couple of months ago, we also saw a situation of where Rotarians were somewhere in Afghanistan and their truck was blown apart. By the rebels.
That must have been a very shocking reality for the entire community.
Yeah, but they didn't give up. They didn't
right.
give up, So that's a core driving thing. Now, where do they get the funds for that?
There you go. Yes,
Right.
I'm sure a question in everyone's minds. Where did Rotary's
what is
funds
funding?
come from?
Now, firstly, to be a Rotarian, it will cost you from memberships and whatever. I would say it cost you about $2,000.
Right.
2,000 ringgit. Okay, that would include your subscriptions, your contribution for little projects, etc.
Right.
But more than that, most Rotarians would actually go out and be happy to contribute to the Polio Plus Fund, to the permanent fund. Like in my club, there's a gentleman by the name of Mr. Tankard, who has contributed close to US $6,000 or $7,000. You know what I'm saying? Is contributed, and he gets what is called the Paul Harris Fellowship.
Right.
Right.
In light of his commitments.
But
I think it's as much about the time that you put in as well as the funds that you need.
Really, it's not necessary. But as long as you be a Rotarian, you've put aside $2,000, you become a Rotarian, and you have the opportunity to engage with humanity.
There you go.
I think only when you come and join and engage on projects do you really feel a different feeling. You know what I'm saying? Just like in anything, until you get connected and participate, you don't feel it.
True enough. You can talk a lot about, philosophy and technique and etc., but until you're doing it.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right.
It's different.
And is Rotary only for the seniors or perhaps the retired and semi-retired people in society?
You could be, our club has Rotarians as in your late 20s, professionals, etc. But you can be a Rotarian in your early 20s, or you can be a Rotarian even join us at the age of 50. Last week, we inducted 2 people. One was an ex-reporter, and another one is an ex-veterinarian doctor. Both are retired. They've joined us last week.
Nice. So basically you've got the Rotarians, then you've got...
So at the top we have Rotary as a club.
Okay, Rotary, the mother organization.
So you have Rotary International, then they have districts and zones, and then we have Rotary clubs.
Right.
Okay. So our club, Rotary Club of Damansara.
That's right.
We have a Rotrack club.
And that's for the 19
that
to
is for
25
people.
year olds.
It's actually called the Rotrack Club of UCTI.
Okay.
Which is now Rotrack Club of Asia Pacific University, because they did a rebranding.
Okay.
And those are kids in college.
Okay. That age.
That age. Yesterday, I was at Sekolah Menengah Kebangsaan Damansara Utama.
Right.
And I was really pleasantly surprised to see some 60, 70 kids.
60, 70.
Kids in room after class at about 1:30.
Okay.
Participating in an Interact Club meeting.
That's the junior version.
Junior version of Rotary.
Nice.
So, and when you get connected at that young age, there's really a build-up of leadership.
There you go. That's the time, the core time to build those skills.
And I could see leadership in that classroom of 60, 70 people. And I actually went to speak about a Korean exchange program that we're going to do.
Right.
So there was excitement, kids were there. And even the Interact clubs would do community projects.
Right.
The Rotrack clubs would do community projects, right? Besides Rotary in itself.
So it's all about humanitarian service at all levels of the club.
All levels. Sometimes, in certain schools, we get them to start with community service in the schools itself before they get a little bit into the neighborhood.
Right. Okay. Now that also definitely begs the question, where does a Rotarian find the time? What does a typical day in the life of a Rotarian look like?
Okay.
Outside of course, personal and work and
tell me.
family obligations.
That's a great question.
Yes.
Okay. Take me, for example. I'm 62.
Okay.
Okay? I've been a Rotarian for 12 years. Pretty much at about 50, I said, it's time I got connected to some form of something to do with society.
Yes, my society.
And I remember after I joined Rotary, a couple of years later, I did extensive travel. I
see.
used to travel like every 6 weeks in Asia Pacific to do training and development.
Right,
Okay.
yes, work initiative.
So whenever I was back here, Rotary has its fair share of principles, they say. Career first,
All right.
and if I'm overseas and if there is a meeting nearby, I could actually walk into any Rotary meeting in any part of the world.
Oh, wonderful.
Because
Once a
we are
Rotarian, always a Rotarian.
Always a Rotarian. We are an
Okay.
international organization. You just have to say you're from this club in
Right.
Malaysia, and you are here to fulfill your weekly obligation of a meeting.
Oh, wow.
But it's not necessary that you have to. So career first, family second,
Right.
and then comes Rotary. So Rotary, in that sense, is very, very realistic.
Yes, of course.
You know, one
It's
of
a
our
good thing.
senior members is Tan Sri Clifford,
I see.
you know, the former financial secretary. And I remember when during what they call as a fireside chat before he inducted me, he said,
Okay.
Richard, don't worry. Rotary will grow into you. And it sure did. Sure did. So come back to time, right? I think it's very interesting to observe there are people who give a lot of time,
Right.
more than the others, simply because in their values of life, they pretty much achieved everything. Correct? Now, to some young people, they would not come for every meeting. They would come for some meetings,
Right.
but they would try their best to engage with projects because most projects are over the weekend.
Ah, there you go. A convenient
Convenient
timing for
time.
all
You know,
involved.
it's rarely do we have a project in the midweek, but we do sometimes. Even if we do, it's most probably during a lunchtime or
Right.
after
hours.
office. Okay. So take me for example. I now sometimes look forward to a meeting.
All right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So our meetings on Thursdays at 6:15 at the Slango Club.
Okay.
And some people will finish the meeting at 7-ish, and they would have a little fellowship and they would go back.
Okay.
Some would stay on right up till about 10:30.
Right.
You know,
Depending
just like
on
it
their timing.
depends on their timing and
That's
their feel
right.
for fellowship. You know what I'm saying? So it varies. Projects, our club has averagely about one in about 6 weeks.
Okay.
So we
wow.
look at like during the floods, there were people who took a lot more time.
That's right. That's a big
And-
turnover.
yeah,
I
big
mean, one
turnover,
every
you know
6
what I'm
weeks.
saying?
So,
a lot more people sacrifice their time during that period.
right. Of course, naturally.
Yeah, and usually, I think in most clubs, the president, when you are in the committee,
Right.
you do more than the members.
Yes, I would assume so
Yeah,
because
you do
you're
more than
steering the ship.
members. Yeah, you're steering the ship, and it's really about leadership by example.
There you go.
You know, it's really leadership by example.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we'll be talking much more about the Rotary Club and all of their activities. Stay with us.
Apa kabar pemirsa? Salam dari Jakarta. Sebuah program kerjasama Kantor Berita Indonesia Antara dengan Kantor Berita Malaysia bernama kembali hadir menjumpai Anda.
Sedar tak kita tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, keadaan iklim yang tak menentu sekarang ni. Perubahan iklim meningkatkan kejadian kemarau, derebu, banjir dan ia menyumbang kepada perubahan iklim yang berlaku secara drastik. Inilah dia faktor-faktornya. Yang pertama, asap dari kenderaan. Yang kedua, penebangan dan pembakaran hutan. Yang ketiga, pembebasan asap dari industri perkilangan. Dan yang keempat, pelupusan sisa buangan. Ini usaha yang Pak Abu buat, iaitu yang pertama, menanam pokok. Yang kedua, mengurangkan atau tidak menggunakan beg plastik. Yang ketiga, mengasingkan bahan buangan. Yang keempat, mengitar semula bahan buangan. Dan yang kelima, memilih barangan dari bahan kita semula. Ada banyak lagi usaha yang boleh kita lakukan. Antaranya, kurangkan pemanduan kereta persendirian dan banyakkan penggunaan kenderaan awam.
Anda adalah sebahagian daripada penyelesaiannya.
Nongkah batasan masa. Mengupas isu semasa. Jadi saluran pelbagai suara. Segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Welcome back to The Nation. You're here with me, Tamina Kausji, and in our studios at Bernama, we have Mr. Richard Jacob speaking to us about the Rotary Club and especially his chapter in Damansara. Right. So, Mr. Richard, as you were telling us, let's talk a little bit more about the 6 areas of focus which Rotary everywhere intends to optimize.
Right. Tamina, great question. The 6 areas of focus. Firstly, peace and conflict prevention and resolution.
Right.
If you went all over the world, you would find Rotary helping out in these migration of people, in the tents, in small or in big ways. Right? Disease prevention and treatment, we are there in a very big way. For example, Polio Plus. Right? In the last couple of years, we have worked hell of a lot on the 3rd area, which is water and sanitation.
Okay. Integral to, everyday health.
Everyday health. And you would be surprised to find out that the millions of people who do not have access to water and sanitation. Right?
True enough. It's a sobering reality of today.
Let me speak about a project that Rotary Club of Damansara works with our sister club, the Rotary Club of Ananagar. Okay. It's one of the clubs. So that's a sister club. Over the years, we have worked on a couple of projects.
Right.
About 3 years ago, I went with them to do a joint project.
I see.
This was in a village, probably 30 kilometers outside Chennai. And in this community, it is just unbelievable that people still live in mud houses, as you would see them in a movie.
Right.
Right? And have you been to India, Termina?
I was actually born in India.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So you know what sanitation is like there.
Well, yes, on a certain level.
You can see it.
Yes.
All over the streets, etc.
Yes.
So we get to this community, and what we contributed was we built a building for medical staff so that they have a proper dispensary.
Yes, just
and
the
a
basic.
doctor could come. And since there was no water, we actually jointly committed to build water distribution, or to build a water tank in this community.
I see.
This is 21st century.
Yes.
Okay? That's India. About 2009, if you go to Kerry Island,
all right.
Okay. There's a Tamil school. No water.
Right at our doorsteps, yes.
Right at our doorsteps.
There you go.
So the Rotary Club of Damansara built a water tank together with our sister club who came down. So we do joint projects.
Right, you do joint cross-cultural.
Yeah, cross-cultural. But to imagine that in the 21st century, you go to a school in Kerry Islands in the state of Selangor.
Yes.
And no water.
There you
It's
go.
unbelievable, correct? So all over the world,
There's a need everywhere, I
there
would
is a
say.
need
Yes.
for basics of life, which is water and sanitation.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Major area. Maternal and child health. It's a lot to do with education.
Oh, yes, that comes
A
out.
lot to do with education, right? So there are Rotary clubs that go to the developing world, the underdeveloped world.
Okay.
Rotarians, sometimes in their own individual capacities, go out and educate people in their own mother tongue on
Right.
maternal child health.
Something that may not be available in many places
Many
today.
places,
Yes.
many places. Basic education literacy, same thing. My trip to Cambodia,
Right.
there was a so-called school where the floor was sand,
Right.
the tables were made out of rough wood, and they were using a chalk. And the kids were in class having a smile. Right? It's unbelievable. But therein, Rotary's commitment to education. So after my trip, the next president went,
Right.
gave stationery, gave books to read, etc., etc.
Just adding on to
Adding
what they
on,
had.
you know.
Yes.
So these are areas. And finally, economic and community development. Correct. I mean, contribution, community development. There are so many things we do
Oh, yes.
as the Rotary International and Rotary clubs throughout the world.
True.
Right. We do hell of a lot. Right. In fact, when I was the president, one of my favorite projects, we tried to engage to what is called a sustainable project. There's a home in Batu Aram
Okay, Batu
where
Aram, yes.
Mr. Arukim actually looks after recovering drug addicts,
Okay, yes.
AIDS patients, alcoholics,
People who need reintegration into society.
people who need when I went to this place, I'm trying to think of the name really, but it'll probably come. It's just amazing that what Mr. Arukim does, so we now contributed. In fact, the very first visit I went there, I asked Mr. Arukim what he wanted, and he said,
Right.
I would like to expand my goat farm. So that time he had like 5 goats. So with or without my club's blessing, I committed to some donation.
Okay.
By the time I became president, the 5 goats became 15.
There you go.
You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yes, increasing.
And right now we've just contributed to a bigger sum. And I believe he's sort of finishing his last bit. So I'm about to visit that place. So in this place, it handles a lot of these things.
Yes.
It covers all the areas of focus, community
It pretty
development,
much does. You can basically end
farming,
up helping everybody and anybody who needs the help.
So Rotary is a really awesome place for people to get connected to humanity, get an opportunity to give back to society.
I can see that now.
It's
Yes.
unbelievable.
Right. And so let's talk a little bit about the Rotary theme for the year 2014 and 2015.
Okay. Rotary theme for the year 2014-2015 is actually Light Up Rotary.
Light Up Rotary, as your pin says.
That's my, every year we get a theme, Light Up
alright.
Rotary. Well, I think every year the theme, the international president,
Right.
okay, the current global international president is Gary Huang, who's
I
a
see.
Taiwanese, and he chose Light Up Rotary.
Okay.
Okay, so he's basically appealing to Rotarians
Rotarians everywhere.
everywhere throughout the world to ensure that a Rotarian lights up the world.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
In his
So
or her
when
own
you
way.
do things and contribute to society,
Right.
I'm sure you've heard of the Rotary motto called service above self.
Yes,
And
I
if you
have.
do that, and if you do that with a real heart and mind, you really light up Rotary. Correct? So in every project that Rotarians are engaged, they actually contribute to lighting up Rotary.
Right.
Correct.
So that's the rationale and theme.
So it comes from the heart, really. I mean, when you want to get connected to humanity, it's not a mind thing, I think.
No, it's more of a heart thing.
It's more of a heart thing.
There you go.
And sort of just triggers feelings, and when you get connected. And I think more than anything, you light up yourself when you do a really nice project. I think you begin to light up yourself too.
And in that vein, I have to ask you, what's a project that's really sparked the fire for you? Something that has left that lasting impact on you yourself?
Yeah, actually a couple, like I said, my trip to Cambodia for one.
Yes.
Number two was that well project in Carey Island in the school. You know what I'm saying? To
Something
imagine
just
in
in Malaysia itself.
Malaysia itself.
Yes.
That was two. To look at what Rotary did in the context of the floods.
The
most recent floods.
Yes.
You know what I'm
Still
saying?
ongoing, actually.
Still ongoing.
Yes.
In fact, like I said, once you get to that level of connection, the home that I'm working with in Batu Arang, you know what I'm saying? Every time I go there, I have a deep sense of satisfaction.
Right.
Being connected. In fact, I spoke about it to my son's friend over Christmas, and he said, "Uncle, I sure want to go there with you to feel for this home."
Right.
So when you are a Rotarian, there is a lot of opportunity to connect with humanity.
Yes.
In fact, Tamina, can I ask you to be a Rotarian too at some stage?
Yeah, I think this was definitely something that can interest one from all the different angles.
Sure.
Yes.
Like I said, in many clubs throughout, there are, to be honest, there are some very active Rotarians.
Right.
And when I was president, it meant a lot for me. It really meant a lot for me, right? I'll give you another one. Last year, or the year I was president, when we went to the spastic home.
Right.
Can you imagine people on wheelchairs, people who are special?
Yes, special needs
and
abilities.
And there are people looking after them. And here Rotary is celebrating Chinese New Year with them.
Right.
Okay? One of the bigger projects we do is we work with ELC, which is another Interact club that we have adopted.
I see.
ELC, which is an international school. For the last several years, we work with ELC to bring Christmas cheer to children.
Right.
And they come from different parts of KL in the Klang Valley. They are Malay, they are Chinese, they are Indian, right up to some 250, 300 people.
Right. Just bringing them the spirit of the season.
Spirit of the season. They have fun. They've probably never seen one of these huge castles. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And we leave them with a bag of goodies. They've never seen a clown. And I've seen kids, come and say, they would call me uncle, and say, "Uncle,
right.
Thank you very much." And when you see that smile on their face,
yes,
it really touches you.
Not just for the children receiving, I think for the children giving as well.
Yeah. In the children giving. And to me, I think those are things you can't teach kids.
No, not in a class.
Not
from a textbook.
You're not in a textbook. So it's extremely rich opportunity to get your kids connected.
Very true. Very true. So yeah, there you go. I think not just, for example, retirees, semi-retirees, older, but send your kids to Rotary.
Send the kids to Rotary and you will never regret it.
So basically every Rotary club is also likely to have a Rotaract sector.
Yes, Rotaract and Interact.
Interact. Which would cover
in
the
fact,
youngest.
In Malaysia,
right.
in District 3300, the Interactors.
Okay.
That's a little bit more active than the Rotaractors. Because in some Rotaractors, actually, they become early members of a Rotary club.
I see.
But we also have, leadership camps for Interactors. We have leadership camps for Rotaractors.
I see. Okay.
So Rotary is a very, very committed organization, very to build leadership, to build integrity,
Right.
right? To build service, the core values of Rotary,
Yes.
right? Fellowship. And when you get to that level where you can communicate, you can participate, you can engage,
And you know how to do it by yourself.
Self,
Yes.
you really build leadership within.
There you go.
I have not seen in a long while children who have joined Interact or some equivalent club who have not made it in society, because the molding is extremely strong
There you go. All right.
at the early age.
Okay.
You know.
So we'll come back after the commercial break to talk more about Rotary and what it can do for you. Stay with us.
Terima kasih. Sama-sama. 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 Sama-sama.
Satu cerita, satu bangsa, satu Malaysia. Menongkah batasan masa, mengupas isu semasa, jadi saluran pelbagai suara, segalanya baru dan benar di Berita Bernama TV.
Welcome back to The Nation. You're here with me, Tamina Kausji, and Mr. Richard Jacobs speaking about the Rotary Club. All right, so as you were saying, Mr. Richard, now what are some of the objectives of the Rotary Club itself?
Okay. Primarily, there are 4 objectives, Tamina.
All right.
One is the development of acquaintance. As an opportunity for service. You join the Rotary Club, you meet people.
Yes,
it
new
allows you, gives you an opportunity for service, which I've mentioned, right?
That's
Number one, it builds pretty much consciously or unconsciously high ethical standards. Expectations are high as a Rotarian. You get into a Rotary Club, you see people from different professionals. Ideally, every Rotary Club should not have people from the same profession. Sometimes it's a challenge, but they do take. So ideally, Rotary would like to see in one Rotary Club, a lawyer, an accountant, a dentist, a trainer, and so.
There you go.
know
You
what I'm
want
saying?
all segments.
So we want.
well
right?
represented.
So it also speaks about the recognition of the worthiness of all occupations.
There you go.
Of all
the
occupations.
importance of every
Occupation. So sometimes in the year, every year we have what is called a vocational award.
right.
An vocational award is given to people who might be running a home for special people. You don't have to be a professional. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So that's the second objective, right? And also it recognizes every Rotarian's occupation, number 2. Number 3, application of ideal of service in each Rotarian's personal, business and community life. Without a doubt, great opportunity to actually practice it in your business, community, family. Finally, I think the big one is the advancement of international understanding.
International understanding.
International understanding. So, like I said, when we went to Bangkok, we met so many diverse people.
That's right. You were telling us about.
Diversity is a very core value of Rotary. Correct?
There you go.
When I went, the RI president was from India. The current one is from Taiwan. The next one is from Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Right?
And this was for the annual Rotary Conference.
Annual Rotary Conference.
So what is the annual Rotary Conference? In
So in international, it's a 3-day affair.
Right,
last year it was
gala.
held in Sydney, and next one is in Sao Paulo.
Okay, wow, the land of
So
samba.
every year they take it into different parts of the world, and people in my club are planning to go to the one in Sao Paulo, and though it's going to be far. But Rotarians from different parts of the world get there.
Okay.
Now, when you get there, there's of course a serious part. There's a big fellowship part. They have different tents, and you just sit down and meet and talk about it. Talk about your experience, get to know people. You know, they will share their projects, right? So every president would have different things to say, and they would bring renowned speakers from different parts to share.
Right. Talk about how the year has been for Rotary.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, let me tell you, when this was not a Rotary International Conference, but I went 3 years when we went to India. I never forget this speaker. You know, I think his name was one of the top people, Banerjee. I never forget his name. He said, he's a very eloquent speaker, and he sent home a message. He said, have you ever thought for a moment that when you give contributions
Right.
to a church or to a temple, whatever, you're not sure where the money is going?
Yes, that is often a doubt. We as
Yeah,
individuals
you know what I'm
have.
saying?
Yes.
You're not sure.
True.
But when you give money to Rotary, you know where the money is going.
You know what's happening.
You know what's
exactly.
happening.
Yes.
You can see it. You can feel for it.
You can actually go along and actually do what's.
You can actually, you don't,
Yes.
it's not necessarily that you have to give, but you actually can go and contribute yourself.
Give off your time.
Yeah, you
That's
know what
right.
I'm saying.
Yes.
And so you'll never forget that. So personally, you know, I'm happy to give Rotary.
Of course. Yes.
Over and above what I give as a subscription, I give, you know, for example, I gave a sum for during the floods.
Yes.
You know, I remember when we Typhoon Cayenne, you know, which was in Philippines last
That's right.
year.
Devastating.
Devastating. Our Rotary Club raised like $13,000-14,000, and we gave to Cayenne. You know,
There you go.
during the recent floods, one of our past President Kula, who is head of disaster, he's heading the disaster
Management.
community management.
Right.
if I can recall, they raised close to about $100,000 or more from Rotarians.
Rotarians alone.
Alone
That's
in Malaysia.
Right.
And that is besides what the hard stuff that was given.
Exactly.
The rice
actual
bags,
supplies.
you know what I'm saying?
Wonderful indeed.
So it's it's not about. So tomorrow, if there's something,
but Rotary is
during
always going to be there.
Always there.
All
you
right.
know, we would go out and get engaged in any part of the world.
What a wonderful message to share with everyone.
So those, in fact, I have lived through all the 4 objectives.
There you go. So thank you so much for being with us here on the show today, Mr. Richard. And we hope that our viewers out there have taken away with them what the spirit of Rotary truly is about. And we plead to you, if you have time and time to give, do check out the nearest Rotary chapter around you. And we hope you have a wonderful Thursday ahead. Thank you for being with us here on The Nation. I'm Tamina Kausji.